decided to buy my potatoes from a local farm supply store. Usually in previous years I got them online from the Potato Garden, which is a great resource for seed potatoes. They have a really big selection if you want to try different things, and they're really great. But I decided to grow a little less potatoes this year. They didn't sell as well at the farmers market as I thought they would, and I just don't have the room and the right place to store potatoes at the right temperature for my family. So I decided to just go ahead and plant a little less this year. So I got one bag of white variety of seed potato. That's a 5-pound bag, and another 5-pound bag of red potatoes. The general rule is that 1 pound of seed potatoes will plant about a 10 feet row. And so if you get a 5-pound bag, you'll be able to plant about 50 feet row of potatoes. So I got 10 pounds, so I'm looking at about 100 feet of potatoes, which should be more than enough for us. Most of the time when you buy your potatoes, there will be a little opening, some kind of opening, a screen on the back, or they might be sold in a net, kind of like a net bed. So you can inspect them and make sure they're not rotten. So you want to make sure that they are still fairly hard. It's great if they already sprouted, if you know that you're going to plant them right away. But that is not a requirement. You can plant them even if they didn't sprout yet. When you get your potatoes, if you buy online or when you pick them up at the store, you want to get them out of the bag and place them in one layer inside a tray or on a counter or something like that. You want good airflow around them. We don't want them to rot. If you're going to plant your potatoes within a few weeks or a few days, then let's say under a month and a half, you can leave them on the shelf in one layer at room temperature. If you're going to store them for a longer period, maybe a couple of months or more than that before you're able to plant them outside, then you really want to keep them at around 40 Fahrenheit. And maybe a couple of weeks or a week before you're planning to plant outside, you can take them out and put them in room temperature in one layer like that. So in order to be able to plant as many plants, to get as many plants as you can from one potato, what we have to do is take a sharp kitchen knife and cut each potatoes into 2 or 3 parts. And you can see here that I divided this one into 3 parts, and each one of those parts is going to be a plant. I have to make sure that each one of those parts has at least one eye, which those are the eyes. Sometimes they already sprouted and sometimes they didn't, and if they didn't sprout yet, that's fine too. You can still plant it and it will sprout in the ground, but you have to make sure that when you divide your potatoes, each part of the potato has 1 or maybe even 2 eyes, like this one has 2 eyes here. I went ahead and finished cutting all of the potatoes. You can see now that it looks like much more than it was before. And you're really going to get a good amount of plants from a 5-pound bag of potatoes. So each of those trays have a 5-pound bag of potatoes. And I didn't count them, but it looks like we're going to get a good amount of plants. I wanted to mention that I generally never cut the potatoes to more than 3 pieces. If it's a big potato, you can divide it into three, which will give you 3 plants, and each of those plants, of course, will give you a few potatoes. If it's a small potato, then I usually cut it in half. You don't want to go and chop the potato really, into tiny pieces around each eye. You want to keep it pretty good sized pieces. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment to explain to you what we're going to do outside, because it's pretty windy outside today. So you'll be able to hear me better over here. We are going to plant those potatoes in a row. You can plant potatoes in many different ways, and I will link below to the post on how to plant potatoes on my blog. And you have all of the different methods of growing potatoes over there, so you can look those over and see if there's something that you might like better. I just like to keep it simple and plant them right in the ground. So we are going to space our rows. If you plant more than one row, you want to space the rows 20 to 30 inch apart. Commercial growers will usually plant their rows about 30 to 36 inches apart, but for the home garden, we can usually get away with 20 to 26 inches apart between rows of potatoes. Inside the row, between one plant to another, we want to have 12 inches of space. So each plant has enough room to grow and produce many potatoes. What else? We are going to plant each of this part of potatoes with at least one eye pointing up. So we're going to dig a hole about 6 to 8 inches deep, and we're going to place this potato just like that inside the hole. So at least one eye is pointing up. There still might be other eyes that will be, pointing to the side or whatever, but the plant will definitely find its way up. So actually the best way maybe for this piece will be this way with this eye pointing up, or maybe this way with all those pointing up. What we didn't talk about is when to plant potatoes. What you want to do is go online and search for the zone that you are gardening in. So basically the zone where you live. I'm in central North Carolina, so we are zone 7B over here. And the best time for us to plant potatoes is between March 1st to March 15th. Potatoes are a cold weather crop, so you want them to mature before the heat of the summer. So you go online and just search your zip code and growing zone area, and it will come up pretty easily. You can also ask your local cooperative extension. They'll be able to help you figure that out. And then just find the dates for the best dates for you to plant potatoes where you are. It will change from one place to another. However, potatoes are, like I said before, a cold weather crop, so we want to plant them pretty much about a month before your last frost date, which is another thing that you can Google and find out. So here our last frost date is April 15, and we can plant potatoes between March 1st to March 15. If I plant at the beginning of March, I will harvest my potatoes around the middle of June. Okay, so I went ahead and marked my row. I just used one of those marking thingies that you buy at Lowe's, and I have a little clips here. I'm not sure how you call those. It looks like that, and it's supposed to keep your drip irrigation in place. So I just use this to mark so I can plant in a straight line. I like straight lines, straight rows. Next thing I will do is dig 6 to 8 inches deep, and I'm using this tool, which I love. I got that from Johnny's Selected Seeds. My garden is covered with mulch, so what I am going to do is move the mulch away a little bit, and once I get to the soil, I'm going to go down. I will try to go down about 6 inches or so. And when I cover it, I will cover it back with the mulch. Okay, here is one piece of seed potato. And you see the eyes? I'm gonna put it inside the hole with the eyes facing up. So, just like that. And then cover it with the soil and cover it with the mulch. Potatoes love mulch. Most garden plants love mulch, but potatoes really love mulch. So I definitely recommend that even if you don't have your whole garden covered with mulch, that you purchase maybe a couple of hay bales and spread the mulch around where you planted the potatoes after you plant them. If you do use straw for mulch, then make sure to open the straw bales a couple of weeks before you plant and leave them in the elements, so if there are seeds in them, they will germinate and you'll be able to remove that, because once this stuff is germinating in your garden, it's really hard to get rid of it. So just make sure you leave them in the elements for a couple of weeks, let the rain water them and the sunshine on them, and if you have anything germinating, just remove it before you use the straw as mulch. Alright, so from this potato that I put here, I'm gonna space the other one about a foot away, so 12 inches away. I'll dig another hole and plant another potato, and I'll just keep going in a row like that. Then once the potato germinates and start growing, I will remove this marking. I will keep it in here until they germinate, so I know not to step on this area, and I know what I planted here. I don't worry much about watering my potatoes after I plant them, just because in the spring here in North Carolina we have a lot of rain, so it's more than enough to water the potatoes. If you live in an area that is a little bit drier, then you'll have to make sure you water them well. Potatoes do like well drained, rich soil, so you want to make sure to have lots of compost for them and a good amount of water.